It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations, we cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Kruse.
So, how do you feel about snakes? I used to catch them as a kid, garter snakes, and bring them home when I lived in Western Oregon, but it wasn't till I was an adult that I got an introduction to venomous snakes, and quite a few of them. Cottonmouths in Georgia, rattlesnakes in Colorado, California, and east of the Cascade Mountains in both Washington and Oregon. I've only been struck once, and I've inadvertently wandered far too close for comfort to a few others, but by and large, I don't have anything against rattlesnakes. Like all of God's creatures, they have a purpose, and rattlers are pretty good at keeping the mouse population in check in many areas. Having said that, it still pays to be cautious when you're in snake country. Whether you're dealing with rattlesnakes, copperheads, or cottonmouth, you definitely don't want to be bit by one. That's for darn sure. That's why we thought it would be a good idea to contact Lesa Johnston. She is with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and knows a thing or two about dangerous snakes. She'll join us later in the show with some advice about staying safe in venomous snake country and what you should do if, heaven forbid, you do get bit and that bite breaks the skin. These warm spring days do bring the snakes out, but they're awfully nice for fishing too. And you've certainly got lots of options to choose from, whether it be trout, bass, salmon, or redfish. But one species that gets a lot of attention, especially in the Midwest, is the walleye. And there's a good reason for that. They're delicious. Have you ever eaten fried walleye before? There are those that say it is the best eating freshwater fish with white meat you'll ever eat. And I've got to admit, those folks, they may be right. If you don't believe me, wander into a restaurant in Minnesota or Wisconsin. I remember doing that in the little town of Ely, Minnesota, and seeing 4 different walleye dishes I could choose from in the cafe I was in. And no, this was not a seafood restaurant either. With walleye in mind, we'll be checking in with Jim Kalkofen with TargetWalleye.com. He's fished all over these United States for those delicious marble eyes, and he's got some suggestions about where to go in the greater Midwest for your shot at some walleye fillets this spring. One thing that unfortunately is over, at least for now, is hunting with our four-legged friends. So, what's a bird dog hunter to do besides watch those dogs sleep beside you, beg for treats, and be lazy for the next few months? I figured Scott Linden, the host of Wingshooting USA and bird dog trainer extraordinaire, would know the answer to that, and we'll be reaching out to him in just a few minutes to find out how to keep our four-legged partners sharp and in shape during the off-season. Finally, as we get into the content of today's show, I want to welcome aboard a brand new station. It's WMOH AM 1450, The Ticket, out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We are thrilled you have brought us on board. That is a huge market there, and it turns out there's some pretty good fishing right outside of Cincinnati, too, right on the Ohio River, and we've got the man who's going to tell you about it. His name, Dale Broughton. He's the owner of Dale's Guide Service, and his website is fishohioriver.com. Dale, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, John?
You know, it's going really good. I think when most people think of Cincinnati, I don't think fishing is top of mind, but I understand you're taking clients fishing right there within sight of the skyline, and you're catching catfish.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you know, we have the Ohio River here that runs through Cincinnati, borders Kentucky and Ohio, and we got some excellent catfishing here, you know, for blues, flatheads, and channels. Right now we're getting a mix of fish. The flatheads are just now starting to come on, you know, with the water temperature just breaking into the 50-degree range. The flatheads are just now starting to get active, but blue catfishing right now has been pretty good.
Let's talk about the size of these catfish in terms of, you know, the different species that you have there and how big they get. What's an average one look like, and what's a trophy look like for a blue, a flathead, and a channel cat?
Well, the flatheads and the blues are our biggest of the catfish species, and normally the blue will get a little bigger than the flathead, but normal day around here on a fishing trip would be 12 to 15 fish, and with your big fish, normally 20 to 30 pounds, with the possibility of catching a fish up to 60 pounds. Channel cat are a smaller fish, and we've caught them up to, 23, 24 pounds, but the norm on them are 8 to 10 pounds.
Well, I'll tell you what, that sounds like a great day on the water to me, catching 25 catfish that are multiple pounds in size. When it comes to fishing this time of year, how do you go about catching these catfish? I see you've got a really nice custom-weld boat that you're fishing out of. What's the drill?
This time of the year, normally we have pretty strong current in the river. We're at about the 470-mile marker from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, downriver from where the Ohio River starts. So we're about the halfway point. There's about 980-something miles of the Ohio River, roughly. So there's a lot of current. Whatever happens in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, as far as snow melt, rain, and everything else, it comes down. So this time of the year, we have a lot of current in the river, and river levels are up a little bit. So we're pretty much anchor fishing this time of the year. We'll put normally about 8 lines out, bottom fish. Later in the year, we'll start drift fishing, where we suspend baits for the blue cats. But right now, we're pretty much anchored up using fresh cut skipjack herring, cut shad. Occasionally, we'll use some live bait. But later in the year, when the current slows down, we'll use live bait and we'll do some drift fishing.
Another question for you, Dale. Do you fish your bait naked, or do you use scents for your bait? And if so, what kind of scent do you like to use?
No, normally I just use fresh bait. When I say fresh, I try not to freeze it if I can keep from it. But for the most part, I'll catch my bait a lot of times, the day of my trip or the evening of my trip, and we'll cut it up, maybe take it out of the bait tank right there and cut it up and use it fresh. And we try not to keep baits out there too long where, the scent will get diluted, because when you got current, fish can track it a long ways. A catfish they have their whole body's a tongue, and they can track a bait. So the fresher the bait, the better off you're going to be.
Most people who go catfishing for the first time, what do they say they're surprised about? Is it the fight of the fish? Is it the size of the fish? When they get that big smile on their face when they hook into one of those cats, what do they say in terms of, I didn't know, fill in the blank?
In most part of the country, as far as freshwater fish, your average person, a lot of them haven't caught a fish over 10 pounds, and it's really common, with catfish. So a lot of times my clients, some of the times it'll be the biggest fish they've ever caught in their life, and they're really shocked by the way these fish fight. You take a flathead, man, he is a fighting machine. He'll keep you down, and I've had some of these fights. I have had fights go over an hour, but the typical big, on a big fish, good fight will be, 10, possibly 15 minutes. But if you get in some heavy current or something in really deep water, and it's tough to net a fish, it can go on for a long time,
Dale, you are making this sound like a whole bunch of fun. One last thing before we go. I know you are a big believer in conservation. Are you mainly catch and release fishing, or are clients taking catfish home with them?
I would say 95% of our fish are catch and release. If my clients want small fish, small channels or something, that's fine. But normally we'll release these fish because these fish are so old, and they've been around a long time. And it may take, to grow a 20-pound flathead in the Ohio River, it may take 20 years. And some of these fish may live up to 50 years. So it's really important to, to just take a picture and release them.
All right. Well, catch, photo, and release is fine by me, especially on a long-lived fish like this. Folks, this sounds like a lot of fun. If you find yourself anywhere near Cincinnati, Ohio, or maybe now that you've heard this, want to make a trip there, here's the website to go to. It's fishohioriver.com. That's fishohioriver.com. Book a catfishing trip with Dale Broughton. He will show you, as you just heard, a good time and a whole bunch of catfish. Dale, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, John.
We've We've been telling you about Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Southeast Alaska for a while now, and there's a reason. They are the only Alaska lodge we talk about in this show. It's because they're truly Alaska's best lodge. The adventure starts with a float plane ride from Ketchikan, after which you'll get the chance to experience some of the best hospitality, food, and wonderful people you'll ever meet. Wildlife is abundant, from bears and deer to eagles and whales, and let's not forget the reason you're here, the fishing. Halibut, salmon, lingcod, rockfish, true cod, and more. It's all waiting for you in abundance at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Book your trip today at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
Tillamook Bay is considered the greatest fishing experience on the west coast for fall Chinook salmon and winter steelhead, and Dungeness crab is plentiful. 5 major rivers connect with the ocean on the Tillamook coast. It's not unusual to snag a 40 to 50 pounder. Go out in a boat or stand on a riverbank or dock. Try fishing from a dory boat and experience the thrill of a beach launch and landing. Use spinners, sand shrimp, or salmon eggs to lure them. The fish will line up to grab your bait. Go to tillamookcoast.com/fishing to find guides and places to stay.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after, whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out on the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
This year, my daughter is deer hunting for the first time, and what she learns is more important than bagging that first buck. Responsibility, safety, conservation, and the beauty of our natural world. Deer hunting is an American tradition that teaches lessons for life. A message from this station and Whitetails Unlimited.
You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse, and this is a great time of year to be walleye fishing, especially in the Midwest of our United States. That's why we've got Jim Kalkofen on the line. He's with TargetWalleye.com. He knows all about walleye fishing. Jim, great to have you back on the show.
Hey, John, good day, and likewise to all their walleye fans out there in radio world.
When it comes to fishing the Midwest, there's a lot of very well-known destinations, but we're dealing with spring runoff right now. So let's talk about a few places where folks might find maybe still some pre-spawn walleye as we roll through April, where they might want to head in the Midwest. Why don't you start us off with one?
John, this is a great time. Ice has been out of the Great Lakes, and when we say Great Lakes for walleyes, we're primarily thinking Lake Michigan and Lake Erie. Lake Erie, I have friends out there right now, and it just really aggravates me because they're sending me all these pictures of 10, 11, 12, 13-pound walleyes. And on Lake Erie right now, this is from here until the end of April, the fish are in sort of a pre-spawn to spawning mode, and the fish are accessible. They're close to shore. Most people are fishing between Toledo and Cleveland, that stretch out to the Bass Islands, and a typical great way to catch them is running and trolling crankbaits, and that's it would work under the ice if you could troll under the ice, John, with crankbaits, and they're really picking up some big fish. I've got friends out there, they've had guide parties now for a couple of weeks, and they say every day, personal best, personal best, personal best for their guide clients. That should give you a clue that Lake Erie right now is a great spot to go.
You know, I think Lake Erie, just listening to other guests over the last 2 or 3 years, this might well be the very best walleye fishing destination in the United States right now. What's your thought on that?
I would agree with them. If not the number one, it would be in the top 5 in just about anybody's book who's been there. I've had the opportunity to fish Lake Erie a number of times when I was running the professional walleye trail. We had a lot of tournaments there and basically got a lot of things going. You know, there's a lot of tactics that would work there. When the fish move up on the reefs to spawn on the west end of Lake Erie, then people can catch them with jigs, with slip bobbers. You can throw crankbaits or spoons. You can do anything you want when they're in that relatively shallow area. But the nice thing about it is you're fishing relatively close to shore for most of the good walleye action. So, an 18-foot boat would suffice. Or, better yet, I recommend anybody going there, make arrangements for a guide and go out with a guide at least 1 or 2 days. It's worth it just to learn what they know. It's a tremendous fishery.
And you're absolutely right. That is a fantastic investment to make as an angler, especially if you're fishing in an area that you're not familiar with. Let's head west in the Midwest. Any fisheries that stick out this time of year for you?
Well, with the snow and the ice that they've had in most of the systems out there, there will be quite a bit of ice until towards the end of April in a lot of the lakes. But in North Dakota, there's a system called Devil's Lake. And what happens is on the north shores, a lot of the lakes and bays, the ice pulls away, and it's shoulder-to-shoulder fishing, just like you might think when you see the pictures that cause a smile across your face of the guys shoulder-to-shoulder fishing trout in upper New York.
Oh, yes.
That's sort of what it looks like for walleyes and pike in Devil's Lake. Devil's Lake is open year-round, no close season, no size limits. And as soon as that ice pulls back or underneath all the bridges, and there's great access, you park, you fish, you walk down. In fact, Devil's Lake has more shore fishing opportunities than any lake that I know of in North America.
Really?
And and underneath all those bridges, the current is running, the fish are there, and they're moving up from the main bodies up into the upper ends of the lake and the bays to spawn. And the water's up a couple feet, which means there's a lot of water coming in this year. So any current areas are going to hold walleyes on Devil's Lake. And you might say, well, geez, all I know about that lake is it's in the middle of nowhere. And I always say to people, so?
Well, Jim, I love the fact that you've pointed out a place where shore anglers have got a shot. Because when it comes to walleye fishing, a lot of people mistakenly think you have to have a boat to get out there to get at them. So this is good to hear. We've got time for one more Midwest destination. What's the last one you'd recommend for April?
The last one, because of water conditions on a lot of the Mississippi, I'm going to just forget that right now. The Missouri, there's a pretty good bite going on in some of the reservoirs in South and North Dakota. But in Wisconsin, a lake that's open year-round for fishing is with a Winnebago chain of lakes from Fond du Lac to Oshkosh, popular spot, an hour and a half-ish north of Milwaukee. And there's current flowing in. There's a lot of people fishing right now at places like Winneconne and fishing for walleyes as they move up to spawn. And then once they spawn, they go up in the rivers and spawn in the marshes. This is something a lot of people don't know about in the rest of the world, but there it's popular. So the fish will run up to spawn. People will be fishing them on the way up. And then once they spawn, they'll be fishing them on the way down. And the water levels are such that the fishing is good. All the upriver lakes and the Wolf and Fox rivers are pretty good fishing. Wolf River is where most of the people are fishing right now at places like Eureka, Winneconne, Shiocton, places like that. And then once the ice is completely out of Winnebago, that becomes a great fishery too, because those fish come pouring back into the lake. And along that west shore is the easiest place to catch walleyes in an area that's accessible to lots of people from Illinois, Wisconsin, and that area.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. You've got 3 destinations to choose from to catch walleye this spring. Before we go, let's briefly tell people about TargetWalleye.com. I have found it to be a fantastic resource, especially since it doesn't cost me a dime to read it.
Well, that's good, John. Al Linder and I started Target Walleye because we wanted there to continue to be the wealth of knowledge that's out there in the industry that's being innovated by the anglers, by the tournament anglers, by the companies, and the gear, tactics, and information. It basically, we say if things are educational and entertaining, you'll find it in Target Walleye. And we send Target Walleye emails free of charge, like you said, John, a couple times a week to all of our subscribers, and there's more and more every week. And this is good because what works in Pennsylvania works in Kentucky, works in North Dakota, works in Washington State. And that's what we try to share is the tactics that work from one part of the country to the other, John. TargetWalleye.com. Go there, sign up, free, get great information.
Couldn't end this segment any better than myself. Again, TargetWalleye.com. I look forward to those emails that I get every week. I read them, and I enjoy the pictures of the great fish that are posted there, too. The website, again, TargetWalleye.com. Jim, thanks for sharing this great information with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, John.
This report is brought to you by a settlement with Experian. Your credit score is one of the primary factors a lender considers if you want to buy or rent a home, lease a car, or obtain a loan or a credit card. Inaccurate information on your credit report could hurt your chances of getting a loan or credit card and result in you paying a higher interest rate. Recently, the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia approved a nationwide settlement with Experian, one of the leading credit reporting agencies, related to claims that it included inaccurate tax liens or civil judgments on its credit reports. Michelle Drake, consumer law attorney.
Consumers who are harmed by an Experian credit report containing an inaccurate civil judgment or tax lien may now claim 2 years of credit monitoring and participate in a program to mediate claims for money.
Affected consumers can participate now. The mediation and arbitration programs and free credit monitoring are available until August 22, 2020. Payment is not guaranteed. For more, visit ExperianPublicRecordSettlement.com.
Our next guest on the show is a person I've looked up to for a long time. He is the former host and producer of Outdoor Life Radio and Field and Stream Radio, and quite frankly, is my inspiration for getting into this crazy business called Outdoors Radio. His name is Scott Linden. He has moved on to television, and he hosts a very popular show called Wingshooting USA. Scott, great to have you back on the air.
You're very kind. Appreciate the compliments. And I miss radio a little bit, but I'll talk about that in another show. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's always a pleasure to get you when I can. And we're in the off season now. Most of the preserves are closing for the year. We've got a ways to go until we can hunt this fall. And as we speak, my Springer Spaniel is asleep at my feet. What do we do with our dogs during the off season to get them off welfare so they're actually earning their keep?
Glad to answer that question because I'm coming off a weekend of training with my Versatile Hunting Dog Club. We have a training day every month during the spring and the summer, and it was refreshing and it was a good reminder of this very topic. But let's go back a little bit farther to when you pick up your dog from the breeder or however you get your dog. And let's remember that dogs learn all the time. From the day they are born to the day they die, they are learning. They're learning good things or they're learning bad things. But they're always learning. So we've got to keep them sharp. We've got to keep them on their toes. I guess technically they are plantigrade animals, so they're always on their toes. But that's so. In the last 5 years or so, I've really hit on something. Yes, we need to keep our dogs in peak physical condition. They are elite athletes. We see the consequences of not doing that every opening day.
Oh, yes.
I won't lecture anybody about that. But we also need to keep them mentally sharp. And sometimes that's really how you keep a dog from going stir crazy in the off season, or even a long weekend when you don't get to hunt during the season. Dogs are incredible. And I found, I'm on my 5th German wire hair, I found that the biggest obedience and discipline problems arise when the dog hasn't had enough exercise or hasn't had enough mental stimulation. So if I do nothing but save you from gnawed table legs with this advice, it will be worthwhile. So there's a bunch we can do, John. And the first is affiliate somehow with a training and testing organization, depending on your breed. If you're a retriever guy, there's the Hunting Retriever Club. There's a bunch of others. Spaniel people have their own. The pointing dog people have a million of them. The AKC has one for everybody. But what you want to do is associate with an organization that has a local chapter. And the reason for all of that is twofold. First off, you have a bunch of friends you can cry in your beer with at the end of the day or just for fun. You can train with them and you can learn from them and vice versa, and we'll get back to that. And you have a goal. The goal is I'm going to put my dog into that hunt test or that field trial, and so I better start training so that I have at least a chance of passing that test.
That's great advice. You know, you've actually already filled up my off season just with that right there. But for the person that maybe doesn't have the ability to do that, to join one of those clubs, you know, I've always heard give your dog 10 minutes a day, running through some basic obedience drills, some basic, fetch drills. And if you do that and that alone, that may be enough. Do you think that's true or do you need more?
Well, the more the merrier, and especially when it comes to keeping your dog in peak physical condition. But yes, little bits here and there, and you talk about 10 minutes. Even for an experienced, mature dog, 10 minutes at a time is probably plenty. Just do it several times a day. You know, I do it when I'm drinking coffee first thing in the morning. My dog, and he's a pointer, he needs all the help he can get retrieving. So we run a couple retrieving drills in the house just to start the process every day so that they're already learning first thing in the morning. The other thing is don't be a greedy owner. 10 minutes may be too long. My rule of thumb is, okay, skill A, whatever skill A is, walking at heel or a triple blind mark, 3 is plenty. If you can get a dog to do it right 3 times, quit. Go on to something else. Because the dog's going to get bored and he'll start phoning it in, and all of a sudden it's going to be crappy instead of good. So don't be a greedy owner. And then the other thing about this whole idea, whether it's off-season or not, when you're training skills of various sorts, think about the continuum. You got a 18-week, 20-week-old puppy, and you're working on recall. You want that dog to come to you every time. Well, for a while with that puppy, you got a long check cord on it, and you're talking to it in a squeaky voice, right. And you really want him to do it, so he comes to you, and then you love him up, and you pick him up, and you hold him, and you reward him in all these ways. Maybe you're working with food treats. I love food treats because I've always got a snack in my pocket. But, whatever you're doing at that age, eventually that dog's going to mature, and he's going to need less check cording. He's going to need less food treats. He's going to need you to speak in your real voice instead of the mommy voice.
Right.
All that stuff. But hey, as an aside, all the women trainers that I've seen out there handling dogs use that same voice even with their mature dogs, and it worked. So remember that. If you ever reach a plateau, raise the bar. A dog gets bored. Like I said, they start phoning it in. So if you're doing a single mark retrieve, and he's watching that bird go down, and it's at 20, 30 yards, well, take it out to 50 yards, or make it a double, or make it a blind, or pop off 2 shots before the dog is allowed to retrieve. Whatever it is, keep raising the bar at every level.
Well, Scott, you have completely motivated me to get my dog out of the studio and outside for some drills as soon as we're done talking. 2 quick things I want to hit on. We've literally only got about a minute left. You are teaming up with the National Shooting Sports Foundation through a website called wingshootingusa.org that sends people to places where they can hunt, specifically preserve hunts.
Yeah, the whole TV show started because I was walking around at the SHOT Show after I left the Outdoor Channel, and those guys at the NSSF came to me and said, "What are you going to do next?" And I said, "I'm making a TV show about bird dogs." They said, we'll take it. And so they became the first sponsor. All I had to do was name the show Wingshooting USA and promote wingshootingusa.org. Because, way back in the day, that was, 12, 13 years ago, that was the first recruitment, retention, and reactivation effort anybody had ever done. The whole goal of the show was show people how fun it is to go hunting and play with dogs. So go to that website, and you'll find places to do that. Some places where you can always get a reservation, always know there's going to be birds out there, always know your dog's going to get some payoff for his work. That's what wingshootingusa.org is all about, and it works. It works really well.
One last thing. Where can people watch your show, Wingshooting USA? You're on all sorts of different channels now, including a new and impressive one.
Yeah, we're on several of the Discovery channels, which is a feather in our cap. I lay most of the credit for that on my production crew of Tad and Lynn and some other folks who pitch in periodically. But the easiest thing to do is go to my website, ScottLindenOutdoors.com, click on where to watch, and then you can find out the times, the days, the times of year, because we rotate through some of those networks depending on the time of year. That's simpler than telling everybody in July we'll be on the Discovery networks, which we will.
Gotcha. All right, we have got to leave it at that. But again, folks, the TV show, Wingshooting USA, go to ScottLindenOutdoors.com to find where you can watch it and when you can watch it, and get some popcorn, put your dog next to you, and enjoy. Scott, thanks for all the great advice on America Outdoors Radio.
My pleasure.
We've been telling you about Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Southeast Alaska for a while now, and there's a reason. They are the only Alaska lodge we talk about on this show. It's because they're truly Alaska's best lodge. The adventure starts with a float plane ride from Ketchikan, after which you'll get the chance to experience some of the best hospitality, food, and wonderful people you'll ever meet. Wildlife is abundant, from bears and deer to eagles and whales, and let's not forget the reason you're here, the fishing. Halibut, salmon, lingcod, rockfish, true cod, and more. It's all waiting for you in abundance at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Book your trip today at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
Hello, I'm Mark Hemstreet, owner of Shiloh Inns. Shiloh is proud to be celebrating over 40 years of providing you, our valued Shiloh customers, with Shiloh's sincere friendliness, efficient customer service, and clean, comfortable, attractive, non-smoking rooms and suites, all at an affordable price. Shiloh also offers many free amenities like free Wi-Fi and free continental breakfast or hot, full, delicious breakfast at most Shiloh Inns, as well as pools, spas, steam, sauna rooms, exercise fitness facilities, and business centers. And even the kids stay free. And for you dog lovers, Shiloh is very dog friendly. So ask your best friend where he or she wants to stay. Next time you're traveling for business or pleasure, we think you'll get a paws up for Shiloh Inns. For reservations, call 1-800-222-2244 or visit our website at shilohins.com. Shiloh Inns, affordable excellence. American family owned and proud of it.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offer spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here for you. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting John Kruse through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. Hurry, though. If you wait too long, the big opportunity might just get away. AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers seeks to ensure North America's outdoor heritage of hunting and fishing through education and work on behalf of wild public lands and waters. Lend your voice to the fight by visiting www.backcountryhunters.org. and join the 25,000 men and women who have pledged to defend wildlife and public access. You can also demonstrate your support by signing up for the 2019 North American Rendezvous in Boise, Idaho, May 1st to the 5th.
More habitat equals more wildlife. Pheasants Forever is working hard every day to ensure there's more wildlife habitat for the future. Join the habitat leader and help create wildlife habitat in your community. To join us, go to pheasantsforever.org.
Next up on America Outdoors Radio, it is spring. The sun is shining in many parts of our United States. And unfortunately, that means the snakes are coming out to enjoy that sunshine too. Now, you've got to worry about some of these snakes. There are rattlers out there. There's, of course, copperheads and cottonmouth and coral snakes, all sorts of poisonous snakes out there. And with us here to give you some tips about what to do and what not to do when it comes to these snakes is Lesa Johnston. She's with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Lesa, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
Lesa, I didn't know this until we were talking a couple of minutes ago, but I understand that there's a difference between venomous snakes and poisonous snakes, and that rattlesnakes are actually not considered poisonous.
That's absolutely correct. It may seem like a small technicality, but actually it's a pretty big difference. So we have a tendency as lay people to use the term poisonous and venomous interchangeably, but completely different modes of action in terms of how the toxins affect the body. And rattlesnakes are venomous, which means, they have little glands that create the venom, and the venom is injected into the unfortunate organism by fangs or a bite. The same thing with black widows, wasps. They have venom, and so the venom is injected through a bite. Poison is a toxin that it can be absorbed through your skin. So if you handle, say, for example, an amphibian, actually a good example is the California newt. It does have a poison in its skin that when you handle them, the toxin rubs off on your hands. So big difference between the two.
Okay, I didn't know that. Thank you for educating me on that. Number one, folks, do not handle California newts. We've learned that right off the bat. Number two, when it comes to all of these venomous snakes, though, rattlesnakes and otherwise, a lot of people really freak out about these. But, just the fact they're out there, it shouldn't keep you out of the great outdoors, should it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you should be cautious and aware if you're in rattlesnake country and take those precautions. But I would say there's a far greater risk of, tripping over a rock on a trail and falling down than being bitten by a rattlesnake. But it does happen, and unfortunately, the bites can be very painful, requires medical attention, and really unfortunate if you do happen to get bit. But still, bites are much more rare than people would assume.
Well, I think you hit on the most important thing right off the bat, and I know this from personal experience, and that's paying attention when you're out there in rattlesnake or venomous snake country. I vividly remember a couple of years ago hiking along one of my favorite trails, and I knew there were snakes out there, but I was daydreaming, and literally 1 foot away from me, I heard the rattle. And folks, I'll tell you what, there's something very primordial about hearing a rattlesnake rattle. You react before it even processes what's going on in your mind. I have never moved so quickly as a 50-year-old man as I did when that rattler started rattling at me from just inches away. Besides paying attention, what else can you do to avoid having a bad encounter with a rattlesnake?
Well, first off, I think you put it into perspective. Rattlesnakes have evolved in such a way to give a huge warning to people or other animals when they feel threatened to stay away from them. So there's a series of behaviors that they demonstrate. They don't want any trouble, to be honest. They need to preserve their venom because that's how they make a living, that's how they eat. So when they hunt, rodents or lizards, other small animals, mammals or whatever, or even some birds, they bite their victim, and they need that venom to subdue their prey and be able to eat. So that's how they make a living. So they don't want to waste it. So many bites are actually dry bites. So, just keep that in mind. That as long as you give them a wide berth, give them a way out, they don't like surprises. So sometimes people like yourself, you weren't paying attention, but you heard the rattle and then you got back.
I was very focused after that for the rest of my hike, trust me.
But it does happen that, snakes are hiding. They're in places where we can't see them, and we surprise them, and they might strike. So, that's why we have a big long list of do's and don'ts on our website. If you're recreating in rattlesnake country, or even homeowners that live in rattlesnake country, some things that they can do to minimize conflict.
Okay, well, let's move on to do's and don'ts if you actually get bit. We're going to have to move fairly quickly through this, but I know 50 years ago, they used to have snake bite kits where you'd have a razor blade and a suction cup, and you'd even seen the old westerns, the old cowboy sucking the blood out of a rattlesnake bite on somebody's leg. We've kind of gotten past that, haven't we?
Hopefully.
So that doesn't work. What does work if you get bit by a rattlesnake? What should you do?
Actually, the first thing, stay calm and get to medical attention as soon as you can. If you can, call 911. Remove any jewelry, rings, because wherever the bite is, you will start, the body will start swelling. You just want to get to help as soon as you can. But something very important, not all medical facilities carry antivenom, so it's good to know ahead of time. You don't want to waste your time going to a medical facility that doesn't have the proper antivenom to treat you. So know before you go is very important. No tourniquets. You want to keep if you're not the one being bit or that was bitten, you want to keep your patient, so to speak, calm. And, you don't want that venom to get through the bloodstream quickly. So, go at a good even pace, but just get to medical help as soon as you can. No tourniquets.
All right, we will have to leave it at that, but folks, you can just find out more by Googling just rattlesnake avoidance or rattlesnake tips, or going to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife website. Just use the keyword search rattlesnakes, and you'll find all sorts of information to help you stay safe this spring, summer, and early fall. Lesa, thanks for telling us about this today on America Outdoors Radio.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Speaking of snakes, did you hear about that 17-foot python captured in the Florida Everglades? Multiple media sources reported on this last week, and here's the details. A group of researchers in Big Cypress National Preserve located the monster snake, which had 73 developing eggs inside of it. Weighing 140 pounds, it is the largest python ever found in this swampy Florida landscape. And in case you're wondering what they did with this Godzilla of a slithering reptile, they did not keep it as a pet, and they did not try to give it to a zoo. Nope, they killed it. And the reason why they did is because pythons are an invasive species that don't belong in the Everglades. Unfortunately, they established a foothold in the area after pet owners either released them or after the snakes escaped from their owners, often in the wake of hurricanes. Pythons have become a real problem because they're eating lots of the native animals, to include deer, big wading birds, and reportedly even endangered Florida panthers. And that is why this particular snake is slithering no more. And frankly, if I'm going to be wandering around that swamp, I'm really okay with that. I wouldn't want to run into a 17-foot python. We've got to wrap things up, but if you get a chance and you find yourself online early Saturday mornings, catch our show on talkamericaradio.us. We air every Saturday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern Time. You can also catch our show on demand, albeit a few days after the original broadcast, on Podbean, Stitcher, and YouTube. Just look for America Outdoors Radio. And of course, we'd like to invite you to like and follow our Facebook page at America Outdoors Radio, and check out our website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. Spring is definitely here, and in most parts of the United States, not all of them, but most parts, the landscape is turning green, the flowers are blooming, the fruit trees are blossoming, and life is pretty good. I hope the good Lord blesses you both this Palm Sunday and next Easter Sunday, and I also hope that in the days ahead, you're able to get outside and enjoy some of the beauty that God has provided for all of us. Whether you're fishing, whether you're hunting, hiking, cycling, wildlife watching, just get out there and do it. After all, it is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it. Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Kruse through his website at AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com.